about to start the next panel. I'm Leanne Wood, and I'm part of the public relations and social media team for the show, and your MC on the Smart Stage, powered by CE Pro. Next up, I'm not exaggerating when I say this is a power panel. And this panel is one of the many initiatives at CEDIA Expo that demonstrates the importance of the relationship between design and technology. On this panel, we have principals, a CEO, a CEDIA board member, an executive vice president, who just happens to kind of be my boss, so we'll be really nice to him. Sponsored by Women in Consumer Technology and moderated by Danielle Carr from Control 4, enjoy the next hour of winning collaborations of design and technology. Danielle, I'll let you introduce your esteemed panel, but let's welcome all to the Smart Stage. Hi.
Good afternoon, and thank you for coming. I'm not Danielle. Surprise! But my name is Carol Campbell, and I am the founder of something called Women in Consumer Technology. And we are extraordinarily proud to be the sponsors of this panel and to introduce you to Ms. Danielle Carr. And Danielle is the architect and designer program manager at Control 4. It's her job. She gets paid to connect this world and that being technology and design build. And she's also in charge of the certified Control 4 showrooms. So she is a hands-on in the field, wants to know and can feed back what's working, what's not, and what is the dialogue and what's the future. So please welcome to the stage Ms. Danielle Carr.
Is this on now? Okay, here we go. Technology, gotta love it, right? Thank you so much, Carol. I'm so excited to be here with you all. I'll stand so you can see me to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart. I do get paid to talk about the intersection between the technology and the design build communities. And it's something that I find a lot of passion in bringing these groups together and creating homes that people can live in and enjoy in ways that they never have been able to before. And so without further ado, let me bring on my talented panel. I'll start by introducing Sarah Gutterman, the co-founder and CEO of Green Builder Media. Brian Pagel, the executive vice president of Emerald Expositions. Stace McGee, the principal architect of Environmental Dynamics. Tony Sabatino, an award-winning kitchen and bath designer and owner of Tony Sabatino Style. Last but not least, Joe Whitaker, founder and president of Thoughtful Integrations. Thank you all so much for being here. So I'm going to start out by talking with Sarah, who, like I said, is the CEO of Green Builder Media. What kind of trends are you seeing in the market that designers and architects and builders should be aware of in regards to technology?
Sure, thank you. First of all, if you're in the connected living space or smart home space, you are absolutely on target. The growth trends that we're seeing and the statistics that we're seeing right now are mind-boggling. Starting with about 40% of homeowners actually currently have a smart home device in their homes. That number bumps up to about 65% of homeowners who respond that either they have a device or they're planning to buy one this year. What we're seeing is that there are two main audience segments that are driving the main growth, the primary growth in the smart home and connected living market. The first is millennials, which is probably no surprise. This is about 83 million people. And when people think about millennials, generally they think of younger kids, right? But the oldest millennials are turning 40 already. About 47% of those millennials are in the home buying market right now. And about 3/4 of those home seekers are looking for smart homes. So clearly they're driving demand of smart homes. And then baby boomers are also a primary driver of the connected living market because they're looking to age in place and stay in their homes longer. And so they're looking for what we're calling assisted living technologies. And the cost benefit of those assisted living technologies is proving to really be a net positive for those baby boomers as well as their Gen X kids, because even with the upfront investment in the assisted living technologies, the cost of that versus what it costs to put those individuals in assisted living facilities ends up, as I said, being that net positive. Now, there are two areas of frustration that we're seeing or kind of elephants in the room, as we call it, that we're seeing in the connected living space as reported by consumers across all audience segments. And the first is of primary importance to the integrators here at this conference, and that's integration issues, right? So consumers might buy a device off the shelf and they just can't integrate it. They're frustrated because their devices don't connect together, or maybe they don't sync with their hubs. And a big area of concern that they're reporting is that those devices don't work as advertised, but really the biggest problem there is the fact that they just haven't been set up or integrated properly. And so having designers, having builders, having integrators basically take over the connected living and smart home space and frankly take it out of consumers' hands, I think is a major trend, and ultimately will really benefit all of us in the connected living space so that we can achieve that optimum integration. The second trend, and then I'm almost done, is privacy issues, of course. Security, both in terms of what security means for families and homes, but data privacy issue. That's the second elephant in the room that we're seeing. That again, I think if integrators and builders and designers can design in privacy protections into systems, that's really going to help solve for some of those consumer frustrations.
Those are super interesting insights. And I know this audience is a mix of both people who are here for the technology and then people who are here for the design, or because they're here because they're architects or builders. So Brian, can you explain to us who integrators are and how we can work with them?
Well, I think in terms of this conversation, it should really be the best friend of the builder or designer. It really goes, I think, foundationally to why we were interested in CEDIA as an organization. We've got to find a way to continue to make sure that these designers know that they have a partner. And the last thing the design build community needs is to look at an integrator on the same plane you would as your drywall subcontractor or carpenter. Really, if managed properly, this gives you an opportunity to deliver a better result to the consumer, one that works, and one that, if you do it right, could include reoccurring revenue. So there's so much more to the equation, but I think the biggest challenge that we're seeing, the design build community isn't aware of integrator as a trade or profession. So, this is, as a community, we've got to continue to elevate this as a profession and as a real trade, so that these builders, designers know that you're a resource. They don't need to be, Tony, you don't need to be a technical wizard to be successful in a connected space, but you probably need to have the right partners to help you succeed. And really, that's what we're hoping we get out of this conversation.
Now, this is CEDIA Expo's second year of bringing designers to the show to learn about technology. What have you seen, Brian, to be working, and what are you seeing as a challenge with that?
Well, I just look at some of the people that are up here on the panel with us and some that are in the audience. It was the aha moment they had last year. So Emerald Expositions has a strong position in the design build space, and specifically on the residential side. So we've always been aware of these conversations about these connected environments, but really no one's been able to effectively deliver on that conversation. I equate to I've got designers that are speaking French, I've got integrators that are speaking Spanish, but I need them both to speak English. So really what we're hoping to get out of these conversations is that we can create that common ground, create a common language, and find ways to get people working together for the betterment of your project. And it's going to take repetition, but we really believe that this is an excellent platform to do that. And I know it works when I see these design tours we're doing, and you see a designer who you've known for years, and all of a sudden they have that aha moment. They get it. That's where it all starts, and that's how we continue to push the conversation forward.
So you mentioned the design tours, which I look out here and I see some people who were on them, but Joe Whitaker was one of the design tour leaders on the Design Connection tours at CEDIA Expo last year. You are an amazing integrator. How have you gotten yourself connected? That's something that a lot of people are finding as a big challenge.
Well, it's like anything that's new, right? We all create environments together. That's what it is at the end of the day. We're all trying to create a communal experience. And through the Design Connection Tour last year, and then taking that further, going out to KBiz with you guys and kind of building that community up a little better, we're learning that we can work together. We know the history of it, of you're trying to do one thing, we're trying to do something different. But as we're growing this as a team, I'm going to try not to use any of the old buzzwords, and I'm going to make up new ones. So there's this thing I'm starting to think about with the interior designers, kitchen, bath designers, and integrators, and I'm starting to think of it as the life cycle of a domicile, right? So you have, when you get your house, you're 30, and you're going to have that house for 30 years. And as you go through that, you're going to change colors. You're going to remodel the kitchen, and you're going to do all these things. But as technology grows, the technology is going to start being part of that design. Whether it be things bipolar, whether it be things, and we see them on the show now. So as that grows, we're going to grow together as a community to provide a better overall product. And it all started with Design Connection, and it is growing and growing. And now, what, this year there's four tours? 3? There's a bunch.
Yeah, there's 3 tours.
Yeah, so it's growing, and that means that this is something that not only was a great concept, that you guys came up with, but it's something that now there's mass behind. Now we know people want this. For the designers here, find an integrator and just start asking questions. Just randomly walk up and just start asking about how to build a relationship together.
Absolutely, and what's amazing is Tony, who was on the Design Connection tour last year, I mean, that's essentially how you got started with all of this. What have you learned from starting out in technology last year to now?
I've learned an immense amount. My experience with technology prior to this, being an interior designer, it wasn't that great. You know, a number of years ago I had a project and I ended up having a bunch of obsolete product. I ended up having an integrator that we couldn't find, and I was mind blow. Last year was a mind blow because I understood that there's this whole culture, and the culture is not just like cool eye and ear candy, which I love looking at, but there's this whole certification process. There's a whole business strategy. There's marketing. There's accountability, and I found that to be really important. You know, in doing the tour with Joe and understanding the different types of products that are on the market and the need to have an integrator on the team at the very beginning. Really, that was my aha moment that you're referring to. So, you know, Control 4, I think that the whole certified program is really great. I think that the streaming content now take a lot of what I used to call, takes the voodoo out of technology for me, because there's less fear of obsolescence. There's a whole sort of system that you can follow, and if something doesn't work, someone is able to go through a process and fix it for you without a lot of forensic programming. Would that be a fair statement?
Very fair. And I will say about a Control 4 certified showroom, building this community right here, something very interesting happened. So when I did my certified showroom, I was actually taking pictures and sending Tony text about design things that were going inside my showroom. And she kind of helped me through the process, her and Molly Switzer. So I mean, that kind of thing, it's real, the community that was built.
Yes.
And Stace, as an architect, how have you worked with certified showrooms or integrators, and what have you seen as opportunities in that space?
So I come at it from a pretty different perspective. 20 years ago, we started using home automation to turn lights off and on, to make your thermostat work, to understand, how much energy is my home using. And now I look at what you all do and what I do for a living, and I find it as a continuous feedback loop of information, that I actually have the ability to understand what's going on in different parts of the homes that we're operating that aren't the lights and aren't the energy. It's about what's happening in the crawl space and the attic. And I always find myself working with the integrators and pushing the envelope of saying, hey, can you do this? Or hey, how can we do this? Because this is what we really want to know. And I don't know how many of you live here in the state of Colorado, but we have some pretty darn big changes in temperature. We have some extreme weather happening at this point in time with some major hail, and it is amazing to think that I can get online, go into one of my clients' houses, and see exactly what's going on in the roof, see exactly what's going on outside in different things, and get empirical data back that allows me to get more knowledge so I can make better decisions. And hopefully we can turn around and start driving the industry with better technology and things that we need sensor-wise to improve what we all do for a living and the longevity of our homes.
Can you give some examples of, you mentioned hail and those types of things, like what other ways have you seen technology enhancing the home and enhancing the home from what you do?
Technology is changing the world, right? I mean, we all deal with it. We all are communicating with technology now. We travel with technology. And through the beginning of what we all used to do together with systems and things of that nature, we would have comfort, right? I have knowledge at my fingertips. And the biggest opportunity I see right now is what I was talking about before, is the ability to get more knowledge. The ability to say that I might be able to change people's behavior with that knowledge, right? And I'll use an example, like I drive a hybrid car. My hybrid car, it gives me a score every time I'm done driving it and turn it on and turn it off. You got a 92 for braking and a 0 for acceleration because you go way too fast and you don't have any consistent in what you do. And it changes my behavior. My kid started driving. And all of a sudden, he's looking at my score saying, hey, I'm doing better than you. He thinks it's pretty funny. And I take that back to the home systems and technologies and things of that nature, because I see a future where I could have a dashboard that's my house. I'm communicating with my house. I'm not just communicating with lights and the normal stuff. I'm communicating with how my house is operating, and hopefully it's simple enough that I can understand it and I won't operator error and screw it up, but I could start modifying things. And my quest in life is trying to figure out, how do we do carbon neutral buildings, right? How, and the millennials, Sarah, that you're talking about, they aren't buying a normal home anymore. If that home doesn't have smart technology, if that home is an Energy Star, if that home isn't doing all these things that are gonna help me reduce my footprint, I'm not interested. And how cool could it be if we had technology in a home that gave us the ability to watch my dashboard? I'm getting close to carbon electric neutral, right? I'm doing well with my water. And then maybe we're competing in a group of friends of mine to say, who's gonna get to carbon neutral first? So again, I see it as a way to learn and get more knowledge. I see it as a way to change people's behaviors and for people to understand it.
Changing behavior is a really interesting way to look at that, and I think that's a really great insight. And Sarah, I feel like you might have some interesting insights on what trends you're seeing in behavior changing within sustainability and other areas due to technology.
Sure. So I'll answer that question by offering some insight into purchase drivers. The number one purchase driver that we're tracking and we're seeing with respect to smart home technology and connected living, and I mentioned this a little while ago, is security. People want intruder alerts, they want to know, they want to check in remotely to their house or look at their kids or their pets when they're away. They want their house to alert them if there's a fire in the area or some other danger, and then they want the house to act appropriately, like for example, in that case of a fire, they want their smart irrigation system to turn on. The second purchase driver is energy efficiency. And as we're solving for energy efficiency, we're not only saving energy, we're saving the homeowner money, of course. And ultimately, when we can have the streamlined Smart Plus solar systems where we're hooking into solar, we're optimizing the harvesting, storage, monitoring, and usage of energy. But two of the hottest and fastest growing trends that I think everyone here needs to be paying attention to include indoor air quality and health and wellness, because what we're finding is that across all consumer audiences, indoor air quality and healthy homes has very quickly over the last couple of years shifted from a nice to have to a must have, to a necessity. And some consumer audiences are reporting to us that a healthy home is as important as location when making home buying decisions. And that's huge because that's never been the case before. The second thing is water. Water has the number one potential to be the mitigating factor in the building industry because, simply put, if there is no water, there are no permits, right? If there's no water, there's a lot of problems. And so within the connected living space, leak detection and water monitoring systems by companies like Flow by Moen and Fin and LeakSmart and others are really just an exploding market opportunity as well. So as you all are designing and building and installing smart home systems, if you're not looking at security, energy, indoor air quality, and water, I'm just saying.
You should start looking at it. Yeah, those are amazing whys. And I think that now that we've talked about why we should have technology as part of this conversation, I want to ask you, Joe, how? How do integrators work with designers, with architects and builders? What does it look like on the ground as a successful relationship for a project?
Well, going to what Tony said, it has to start right away. The minute the pencil hits the paper on the architect or the designer side, because there's so many of those back and forth implications from, you know, the silly ones that we're used to, like TVs coming out of ceilings, you know, getting that into architecture, things that are very designer centric in kitchens. I use this one quite a lot. Both Tony and Daniel have heard me say this one. In Vegas, there's, out on the street, there's this really great outdoor environment with a fountain and a waterfall, and it's playing Disney music, and it kind of drags you in. And then you go up to the railing and you look around, and there's these big green speakers, similar to these black ones down here, scattered all over the place, destroying the entire design of this. It sounded good when I was 40 feet away, and it looked good from a block away, but once I got on it, the technology destroyed the design aspect of it. And that's been something that has happened. I'm sure everybody on the integration side and the design side that's here in the audience right now, you've been on one of those two sides. We have to start thinking about this as, is this somewhere I want to live in? Am I designing someplace that they can comfortably live in, and they're hitting all the senses? The sights that she brings, the art, the sounds, all of that being encompassed together to bring an entire environment. And that doesn't happen if we don't work together early. A good example is outdoor entertainment has become a big thing, right? You've got outdoor TVs that are weatherproof. You've got outdoor speakers and all this. But if you walk along the floor, you'll find some companies like Nexus 21. I see them right over there. They do motorization. And you can take a huge waterproof display and have it raise out of the concrete by your pool. If I'm not talking to the architect on day one, my client will never get that. So it's one of those, as we work together, we're going to grow together. Because now I'm giving her ideas for design she's implementing. She's helping me figure out what products are right to fit inside the environment that she's building, so that, you know, we're like, oh, it's entertaining, or it's functional, or it's lighting control and energy management and all that. And sometimes we have to step back and use, as an integrator, words we don't understand. And she comes into me and says, this is going to be a relaxing room. What is that? So now I've got to start thinking about audio and visuals that are relaxing, right? Zen rooms. Or this is a high intense cycling room. Okay, now I need to change my thought process and the technologies that I'm putting in here. But we can't do that when we don't work together. And when we do that together, we all generate more revenue. We get a better client base that's happier with the products that we're providing. And what does that do? Creates more clients, better word of mouth, and now starts bringing worth to what you do for people who might have not thought there was worth before. And that's why that partnership is so important.
Tony, would you like to add to that?
absolutely. I think what you're talking about is lifestyle. You know, I mean, all of the wonderful things about energy neutral design build, those are more the things for the architect. You know, so me as an interior designer, I'm going to be focused on trying to give my client the, you know, I love the CEDIA term, right? Life lived best at home. It's the world's best tagline. And I think my job as an interior designer is to work along with the architect and bring in the integrator if we don't already have one on the team. Because you think about lifestyle, and everyone's lifestyle now has technology in it. People manage their lives from their phones. They're doing their banking, maybe they're sending their college kids some money, they're texting their friend. So while you're having the conversation about what they need, and they go, oh, I don't need all of that, you know, yes you do, because look at what you're doing right now. So how can we make your home work better for you? And I think the car is a really great analogy because, you know, I remember watching like American Idol a few years ago, and they've got the Ford Focus that's got like the CarPlay and all of this, and we've got this little inexpensive car, but people expect to get in the car and have the car have great technology and have the car work with you. So why aren't we expecting that from our home? You know, and coming from a kitchen and bath experience, right? My whole world is kitchen and bath. You know, my kids make jokes about the Forrest Gump movie with the shrimp. You know, you could change it out for cabinets or appliances, and that's my mom, right? So the thing about the appliances and the cabinets, they're all about making someone have a great experience where they're feeding their friends, they're feeding their family, they're feeding their soul. So what does technology bring into the environment? It brings so much, and I just want to quickly touch on living in place, because we talk about aging, and aging is not a fun concept in our society. Nobody wants to look at it, nobody wants to address it. You know, I'm not old yet, but if we're building an environment that works for everybody, right? If we take the aging in place away, we take the universal design away, and we simply are building smart, intuitive environments, we will naturally and gracefully age in those environments while we are preserving the dignity of our friends and family that come and visit us.
So I want to give a little example. It's like the perfect picture of example of our professions, right? She walks into a client's house with a Mona Lisa. We'll just say somehow you got that. She walks in with the Mona Lisa. Here you go, client. He's got to make a wall for us to put the Mona Lisa on. And then I've got to control the Kelvin temperatures of the lights that shine on it and the shades that keep the UV off of it. And that's it in a nutshell. And when all of us work together, she just sold the Mona Lisa. So, I mean, think about that for a second. I mean, that's the partnership.
Well, you know, I think what would be interesting is, so how many people here that are in the design build space are you currently working with integrators? Raise your hands. So for those of you that are doing it, that's great. You're ahead of the curve. But for those that haven't, I think the big thing is you got to find a reliable partner. And there are resources out there that you can do that. And you've got to be very careful, because if you look for an integrator, or if you're not looking for the right person, you might find that you're talking to a licensed electrician, not the right partner for what we're talking about. So you got to make sure you find a good partner who understands your business. But I think until you get that good, solid working relationship, make sure you're asking a lot of questions of one another, because I think when I look back at the kitchen and bath space compared to the rest of the home, certainly the connected home concept is alive and well, but the kitchen and bath have always been somewhat outliers. So being able to fully integrate so you have a holistic experience is ideal, because if you have a range that I can go ahead and preheat my oven and figure out what recipe I'm going to make tonight, but that's a separate interface to the rest of them, that's kind of pointless. It defeats the purpose. So it's having a well thought out, fully functional experience, I think, is important. And that plays into a lot of these other things, be it wellness, be it aging in place. I mean, certainly these environments need to be functional, but they need to be safe spaces, and they need to be productive spaces, and they need to be specific to your client. One client's wants and needs may be radically different than another, so there's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So I think the more you ask of the questions, the more probing you do from a consumer standpoint, the better off you're going to be in terms of delivering a good product.
I'd like to add to that and actually talk to something that Tony said as well, and that is that in order for us all to be successful in the connected living and smart home space, we need to start making it more streamlined and just easier and simpler, right? So, and that's everything from devices integrating with each other and with mechanical systems and with windows and other products and technologies in the home. It's also, of course, the standards and the protocols, because we have so many points of connectivity right now, Zigbee, Z-Wave, Wi-Fi, and some devices work on one and not the others. And I know that some of the major, kind of hub companies like Samsung SmartThings, as one example, are trying to solve for those integration issues. But until we make a smart home so easy and streamlined and seamless that really the homeowner doesn't even know it's there, and when we are there, what's going to happen is we're going to take human error out of the whole equation, right? I won't need to program my devices because it will either be pre-programmed, or just like as I set up my phone, I just hit a couple preference choices and the whole thing programs for me. And that's why it's so important for designers, integrators, and builders to take over the smart home conversation and not leave it in a homeowner's hands anymore, because we have to take human error out of it. And particularly like in an application like aging in place and living in place, you're absolutely right. We need to design so that people don't really have to think about it. But that means, for example, in the assisted living technology arena, it's fall detectors, it's sensors, it's home health care and health monitors and things that are built and designed in a way that it's not scary, where people are like, oh my God, I'm gonna die at some point and I want to age in my house. But make it so that it's not scary, but very kind of homeowner friendly and very simple.
I think that's all about the user experience. That's what I like to say. I like to think that I'm going to give my clients a user experience that meets the aesthetic. And I think that technology truly is the way to do that. And I think also I've had the benefit of coming from the kitchen and bath arena, as opposed to interior design as an afterthought. Okay, you bought the house, it's got a kitchen, what color canisters am I gonna buy, what kind of throw pillows? We're not about that in the kitchen and bath space. We're there in the nitty-gritty when the walls are open. And that's when you have the opportunity to talk to your client and say, I want to help you make that best investment in your most valuable asset. And this is really the way that we think about it to do that. And you've also got living in place really, what kind of a sentence do I want to put together here? The thing about it is it's for everybody. It's for the person who's skiing and falls down the hill and doesn't want to ask their significant other for help toileting because they've got a cast. It's a really raw concept, but it's important. And so if we take something like that and we think about the whole rest of how our home functions and how our home is going to make us feel and envelope us, I think that there's so much opportunity for everybody.
So, a mic drop moment. Everybody deserves a mic drop moment. I want to give a special thank you to you, Brian, and you, Danielle. All the integrators out there just heard something that never happens. We just heard a designer say user experience. Think about that for a second.
I think that's
Mic drop.
The key, though, is we're all kind of touching on, is that the users do not have a friendly experience, they aren't going to use. And the only way we're going to be successful is if we have simple operating systems that people can use, and there is no operator error. They just take that out of it as much as possible, because the first question my clients always ask is, well, is the clicker going to work? Right? Is it going to work when I want to work? And when it doesn't work, what am I going to do? Am I going to call you at 11 o'clock when I'm having a dinner party and everything didn't go the way it was supposed to? So simplicity is incredibly important to the owners, and we need to make it so, right?
We also have self-diagnostics now, and in the kitchen and bath field, I think that's pretty amazing. It's a game changer to get an alert on your phone that, hey, the dishwasher service guy is coming because your dishwasher's not working, and you didn't even realize that you needed to call him yet. There's so much to this in terms of what you're
talking about. Or even better yet,
about.
it lets you know that there's a block in the pipe before you even turn that dishwasher on and have the whole episode of it flooding into your kitchen. That's where we're heading.
Absolutely.
A question to all of you is, okay, we've seen the why, we've seen the how. Where do they start? Like, they've heard all these great things, they want to do it. What is the next step when they leave this trade show to start making these things happen? Whoever wants to take it first.
Everybody's looking at me, so sure, why not? this experience has been really unique for me because I've been partnered in other associations in the past. So I would say one of the first things you can do, and okay, I'm telling you to join another association, whatever. But if you're an integrator, join the NKBA. And here's why I say that. You can look at all the other associations, low cost of entry, hands down, probably one of the lowest cost of entry. They do more events on a quarterly basis than any of the other associations I've been involved in. In my St. Louis market, before November, I can think of five events. And they're at different levels, but this is how you can, you have to get near the person to engage them and have the discussion. And if you're not going to where they're at, you're never going to crack the code. So you need to start engaging these people, start the discussions, and talk about how can we work together? How can I help you? Do you just want to help me on your design, or can I hire you as a consultant for me? And start turning that into a business plan to grow into those areas and capitalize on that market as a team. And I would say one of the first places I would start when you leave, join the NKBA. It's easy. They have events. The people are amazing. And it'll start having you look at those new things with architects and ASID and everybody else to start putting it all together. But it all starts with you have to get with those people first.
Yeah, but and not to play into the media business because we're really good at what we do, but keep educating yourself. You should have a natural curiosity to learn more because this category is always changing. When people start talking about the connected home, you think, okay, how am I going to connect my phone to this device, and this device is very simplistic, or how do I turn my lights on from afar? But really, there's so much more that comes into it. There is the water management, there's the air quality. There are so many different rabbit holes you can go down, and it can be quite overwhelming. So this is where you just need to have an ongoing natural curiosity and continue to educate yourself. And there are resources from the association standpoint. There's paying attention to different magazines, newsletters, etc. But just always stay on top of it and ask a lot of why. Why? Because that's the only way you're really going to learn.
Brian, I was going to say, from my perspective, one of the best ways to learn and to get involved and to understand who you need to meet in your geographic areas is actually working with the manufacturers. And there's some amazing technology here, from all of these exhibitors. I'm really impressed by some of the folks like Samsung SmartThings and Elan and Control4. Go over to their booths, check out what they're doing. Look at how fully integrated their systems are. And I'm not shilling for any of them. I think they're doing great things. Because I think in understanding what they have to offer, you can then understand what you can pass on to your clients. And I suspect that those manufacturers can hook you up with integrators and other folks in their network in your geographic markets.
Stace, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I would say two things. Learn how to keep it simple, and learn how to design and work with a system that will do the long haul, that will last as long as possible before someone's having to redo the backbone in a house, because it's really hard to redo a backbone in 10 years. So, and that is not all, that's easier said than done, but we always use that mantra when we get involved in that way.
That's awesome. Thank you all so much for your time and your expertise. Before we open up to questions, I just want to do a round of applause for you. You're all amazing. And I don't know how much time we have, so if somebody can give me some eye, but does anybody out in the audience have any questions for any of the panelists? Yeah.
Tony, what single entry sentence do you give your clients so that you know that they are a perfect client for expanding their user experience with home integration?
I don't have a single one. I think really we need to be sociologists. We really need to look at how people live and how we can enhance that. And you have people who are brand sensitive, and you have people who are not. You can basically see what people value. I don't even charge the same amount okay, for each client. Some people have a value system that operates off square feet. Some people have a value system that operates off hourly. Some people want to talk to me about their dog and their mother, and they want to pay a project fee. You know, so really these things need to be negotiated. So when I meet, I'm interviewing my clients as well, because I have to make sure I can work for them. I have to make sure I can satisfy their wants, needs, and desires within a contractual agreement. You know, and that's basically how I approach this whole thing. And I think too that maybe it's not always the same integrator that you work with, because maybe people have different sets of needs, and I think maybe you need to have a network. And I'm also going to give a plug to the NKBA. I'm the chapter president for the Manhattan chapter, and it's my pleasure. I'm grateful to serve in that capacity. The opportunities that have come my way have been immense, but I will say that the kitchen and bath industry is very special. We're a group of sharers. We want to see people succeed. Together, we grow. We've got great educational systems in place. We've got great media partners, the KBB magazine, and I see all of that happening with the CEDIA crowd, and it feels very symbiotic and wonderful to me.
Did we really teach you guys that much that you have no questions?
I guess if we have no more questions, do any of you have any last words? Any thoughts that we haven't covered? Anything you'd like to share?
I'll just say from my perspective, since I wear multiple hats and running this show is one of them, I just want to thank everyone for coming, especially those that are outside the pure play integrator community. I think it speaks a lot to your commitment to your craft, and I really, really hope that good things come out of this experience. So thank you all very much for coming to Denver.
For the designers in the crowd, if you are looking to find somebody, there's two great places to go. Number one, you can find a Control4 certified showroom or integration company, but also kind of the namesake of the show. You can always find a CEDIA certified professional, which we commonly call integrators. So that is easy to find. Go to the website, find somebody local to you. Always look kind of that badge of honor and certification so that they're learned, they're educated, and they handle themselves as a professional.
Well, once again, thank you all so much, and thank you all for attending, and I hope you have a great rest of CEDIA.